Hello and welcome to the SC Playbook podcast, live from the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas ahead of the 2025 NRL Supercoach season, proudly brought to you by Mortgage Choice SCW. I'm your host, Tim Williams, and my guest for tonight's show from Vegas, Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs chairman and NRL Supercoach guy, Adam Driussi. Ads, how are you, mate?
Very well, Tim. Good to be here, mate. Just arrived in Vegas, so good to see you and looking forward to a big week.
Ads, you're fresh off the plane, mate, and you've come into the room, these highly fancy studios. I've dead set had two microphones for us. I forgot a little attachment on one of them. So we're off to a ripping start from the first out-of-studio podcast in a couple of years now, mate. We're very excited to have you along for this show. Teams have been announced for round one. There's been a few little curly ones for the start of the season as well, including no Isaiah Papali'i in the starting side, which is one that's already impacted my team. Ads, before we get stuck into the show, let's talk a bit of doggies, because you've been on the board with them for a few years now, mate. But you took over the role as chairman for them early last season, or before the season started, I should say. Firstly, how's it all going for you?
Yeah, really good, mate. It's been a really good off-season. We're unbeaten, like every other side at the moment, so it's always nice when you're unbeaten. There's no stress of a loss. But, no, look, I think Cameron's been really happy with the way the team's been training. We've got a lot of young players coming through and getting more experience, and they're all going really well. So, yeah, really excited. Really looking forward to the next year and year or two.
And, mate, before we really get stuck into the Supercoach chat, and we won't be long, but we've got you here. We've got you on board. You've supported and you've helped out with SC Playbook for a number of years now. Since taking on the role as chairman, you've been even more flat stick than normal. So it's been a bit harder to get you on the show. So to have you here in Vegas for the TLT, first TLT of the season, it is very exciting for us. Doggies, 2025... It's been a big few seasons. 2023, obviously Cameron Ciraldo came on board. Also tougher year. I think you finished 15th overall, had the worst points differential, and, first year on board, an untested NRL first grade coach. And you stuck by him and you're very positive. 2024, you reaped the rewards. You came very close to to finishing in the top four. You played finals footy, came very close to going through to week two as well. 2025, you're looking up and about. It's a stable club, looking a long way from where it was a couple of seasons ago. Talk to us about your journey with the Dogs so far.
Yeah, look, I guess if we go through those 3 years, not every bit of detail, but look, Cameron obviously in his first year had a big job to do to change the culture of the club, change the way the team are training, the team are playing, and I think he did a really good job of that. It was obviously pretty tough because he had to come in and, like I say, change the standard and move some guys on. So that was challenging for him, and it was one of those moments where it's easy to say, but we were always going to go backwards a little bit to go forwards. I think last year, to be honest, I feel like last year was maybe a year ahead of where I thought it would be. I thought last year was the year we would have this year. So I thought last year we would maybe just miss the 8, but start playing better football, and then the young guys would start coming through. So, last year we were stoked. The team played really well. The crowd got behind them. Probably should have beaten Manly in the semis, let's face it. They played really well. So this year, again, mate, so much happens in football. Like, you can get an injury. Look at South losing Latrell and Cameron Murray in the lead up to round one. So many things happen in football. All I say is I'm very happy with the long-term trajectory of the club. So, all the young guys coming through. We've got so many young players in our starting side. So very happy with how well that's going. How we go this year, well, we'll see. But very, very, very happy with Cameron and the coaching staff. They're all doing a tremendous job. Gus is a powerhouse. He works his butt off. I talk to Cameron and Gus pretty much every day, so I know how much hard work they put in, and I'm very lucky to have those guys in the club.
And I'm going to put you on the spot here, mate. I said I wouldn't do this to you around Doggies chat, but I'm going to, because it's one thing that fascinates me so much, and I haven't spoken to you about it off microphone before either. But you've gone around, like, my biggest concern and a lot of fans for the Doggies last year was just having this smaller forward pack and saying you're a big man short, or last year probably a couple of big men short. But you went in with some of these smaller-bodied middle forwards. Curran coming in there playing big minutes through the middle. Jamin Salmon was playing lock, Kurt Mann. And also you have a ton of versatile players. So if there's an injury or 2 or 3 in game, you are covered all over the place. Obviously, it was a pretty groundbreaking team strategy and team selection strategy in terms of roster management. I hadn't seen it before in the modern game. It's working for you so far. Talk to us about this.
Well, there's a couple of things you said there. I think in terms of the utility, there's a lot of talk about utilities. First of all, I think all of those players were players that came from really good clubs, and they were like professional clubs, professional players that we knew would train hard and be a good cultural fit. So that was the first thing. Secondly, I think for all of them, we had an idea of what positions they could play. So say Connor Tracy, yes, he was a utility, but actually we recruited him to play fullback. So it wasn't like we said, we'll recruit a utility and what position will we put him in. Now, the beauty of it is there is some flexibility there. So if you lose a player, you can move people around. But ideally, you want to keep Connor at fullback like we did throughout the years. So I think that was overplayed a little bit by some people, but it is good to have flexibility. It's no different to Supercoach, right? Like you've got to pick a side every week. So if you can have flexibility within the top 30 or 36 you've got these days, I think it does add a lot. So I think some clubs have underplayed the value of that, whereas they thought we overplayed it. On the small forwards, look, to be honest, I think Cameron coached the side that he had. It wasn't a plan to say, right, let's go and make sure we've got a small forward pack. I mean, that was the side that we inherited. There wasn't players available at the time that we wanted to recruit. Like we were playing the long game, and then Cameron coached a style that fitted with that group that he's got. Now, Cameron has a very defensive style. So again, everyone focuses on attacking stats and all that sort of stuff. But at the end of the day, our defence was what was really outstanding last year. So he's an outstanding defensive coach. And but yeah, a lot of fans look at the attacking side and attacking stats rather than defence. But I think that was the thing that went really well last year. And that pack did a great job defending and working with each other. I think it was a great example of a team being better than a bunch of individuals. Like, I think you can see how connected they are as a team, which comes down to the culture that Cameron's built and we've got in the club. And the good thing is it's cascading through all the lower grades as well. So we've going to got that same culture through all of the lower grades. Now, how long that takes to turn into what the end goal, we'll have to wait and see. But it feels really good around the club.
Mate, very exciting and so good for Doggies fans as well. Obviously, it'd been a tough sort of few years, or better part of almost a decade now since the final grand final in 2014, I think it was. So, stoked for Doggies fans moving forward. The team you've got, as you said, the more that Cam Serrato gets his hands on this roster and getting exactly what he wants. Hopefully a big season for you going forward. Now, mate, let's get into the show. Team list Tuesday, Supercoach pointers. Isaiah Papali'i, as I mentioned, off the bench. Tons of things to take for this. We'll get to that straight off the bat. But weekend Supercoach trial takes big Greg Marzhew getting a bit more ball for a change. Cam Munster returned, moved very well. And we're also doing a Cheapie special edition. I like to leave it as close to the season as possible so we have a bit more idea once the trials are done of what the cheapies are going to look like heading into the start of the season. So we'll touch on those, all the best bargain buys. Iongi, Duffy at the forefront of money-making plans. Can we have both of them? We'll get to that shortly. And then listener questions to wrap it up, looking at Alex Seyfarth, if he's an option to start the season. Guys, the SC Playbook League code, the Unlimited League 434727. There's $1,000 in cash up for grabs to the winner of that. And of course, the SC Playbook subscription package. For less than $2 a week, you can subscribe to the SC Playbook premium offering. Putting that in perspective, it's a quarter of your Friday afternoon schooner, or as I've recently found out, about a tenth of your Budweiser tinny in Vegas, because they do not miss you. Tastes good, but geez, they're expensive. What it gets you: access to SC Playbook's premium content, extra articles every week on site, access to our WhatsApp community with late mail threads, community team advice threads, community threads to share our thoughts and plans from the contributors to the SC Playbook subscribers, punting threads, head-to-head only threads. It's all there. We've got full Unlimited League prize money up for offering to the subscribers, and brand new exclusive subscriber-only podcasts this season. The third one of those going live this week. The video of that is on site now for subscribers from the first 2 eps. So to subscribe, head to the menu at scplaybook.com.au and hit subscribe there. The WhatsApp link comes in the confirmation email. Check your junk folder if you haven't found it yet. And if you have subscribed but you can't find it at all, email us at supercoachplaybook@gmail.com. That is full words Supercoach. Now, ads, let's get stuck into it. What?
I mean, that just sounds like if you don't subscribe, you're mad. Listen, you've gone nuts.
You're a salesman, mate.
There's so much stuff there.
I know, much stuff.
But wait, there's more. Steak knives. Yeah.
A tenth of your Budweiser ads. Yeah. Mad if you don't.
Mad.
Now, let's get into the team list to start the week. And, mate, we will start with the Raiders and the Warriors, the opening game of the season, the blockbuster, the way it should be. They started with the two big dogs in the competition, and that's exciting for us. Being only 4 teams this week, I will read them out 1 to 17. At number 1, KO Weeks, Savelio Tamale and Xavier Savage on the wings. Xavier Savage engaged, I saw the other day. Good on him. Congratulations.
Good news for the Raiders, thankfully.
Oh, the start of plenty to come, ads. Matt Timoko, I should say, and Seb Chris in the centres. Ethan Strange and Jamal Fogarty in the halves. Corey Horsburgh and Joe Tarpany at prop. Tom Starling at 9. Hudson Young, Zach Hosking in the back row with Morgan Smithies. Owen Paddy gets his NRL debut off the bench. Simi Sasangi, Josh Papali'i and Atta Mariota. Mate, we'll start with the Raiders before we get onto the Warriors. Savelio Tamale is one, a cheapie for round one. I'm not convinced he's going to have terrific job security when Albert Hopewade is back. He misses round one due to the impending birth of his child, so he's not travelled to Vegas. Doesn't make him a bad cheapie as such. I just don't think there's great job security, and I think there's a few CT dub cheapies that have emerged that means we may not necessarily need to lock in Tamale. But the big one is Big Red Corey Horsburgh, dual position, front row, 2RF. He averaged 45 points in 45 minutes last season. Due to injury-impacted games, though, sorry, not just injury-impacted games, but only having played a handful of games for the season, 5 to be precise, he's priced on a 36-point average. He averaged 62 points back in 2023, adds at 355k dual position. I think the Red Dog actually wore the Doggies jersey for a couple of games during COVID, and did the jersey proud. I think he's a lock. Is he in your side?
He is, yes. It's a big turnaround for him to be starting there for Canberra.
Yep.
So I thought he was going to be on the bench and he was probably still going to be in my side. But yeah, I think at 355, you got a starting front rower who you know his PPM would be pretty good, I imagine, when he plays. So yeah, no, I think he's an easy one to pick.
Agreed. Yeah. Owen Paddy named in the 14 jersey. Paddy has a very bright future. We saw him in that first trial for the Raiders against the Panthers. He scored 2 tries in just a handful of minutes, a lot of hype around him. He's come down from Queensland to sign with the Raiders. He's extended long term, so super exciting for the Raiders. He's bottom dollar to start the Supercoach season. I think he could potentially be the buy of the season in terms of, the number one cheapie of the season. But he has to start because as it stands, there's competition from Danny Levi there. We don't know how he'll go at actual NRL level despite playing in that trial game. And I just think it's going to be like maybe like a 50-30 minute split with Tommy Starling or whoever the starting hooker is. Once he starts, he will be a buy. But until that point, I just don't think he's going to get the minutes. Does Owen Paddy as a cheap hooker option interest you or not?
Well, not really, because you're my Canberra Raiders expert that I would ask. And if that's what you're saying, I'll go with your opinion. But if he was starting, it would be great because he's cheap. But so Sandon Smith. So I've got Sandon Smith there at the moment. But yeah, obviously, he's a watch if he was to start, for sure.
And look, he might play the first 2 or 3 rounds off the bench, kill it, might score a couple of tries, get some attacking stats and score well enough. Cool. Like, I'll bring him in round 3 or 4, whenever that might be, prior to initial price rise. But we just don't want bench fodder in hooker. We had it last year, a lot of people with the other Raiders hooker in Danny Levi, who fortunately scored a few tries early, but just sat there for a lot of teams all season because he wasn't getting the minutes. And we don't want that without Owen Paddy, so I'm not falling into that trap again. And look, there's nothing too else substantial at the Raiders. Zach Hosking has been named. He was under a bit of an injury cloud, but he's good to go. Now we move on to the Warriors, and there's a lot going on at the Wires. So their team named Chance Nickel-Klukstad, Tane Torpicki, Ali Leotawa, Adam Pompey, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Chanel Harris-Tavita, Luke Metcalf, James Fisher-Harris and Mitch Barnett in the front row, Wade Egan at 9, Kurt Capewell and Murata Niokore on the edges and Aaron Clark at lock. The bench is Dylan Walker, Jackson Ford, Dimitri Vormega and Leka Halasima. Where do we start on here? I mean, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, he's named on the wing. Talk to me about him, Ads. He's one that I was keen on as soon as I saw him playing wing in the preseason. He's not in your team, I can see as it stands. But what are your thoughts on Roger? Because I think tackle busts go up. I think runs go to sort of mid-20s per game. If he gets a licence to roam at all, even better. What are your thoughts?
I feel like I was bitten by him last year. Like, I was super excited to have him on my side last year. And then, I don't know, he just never really hit any heights, did he? So I've probably... The reason I don't have him is because I've got Marzhew in front. So I've just got Marzhew instead. So I couldn't really afford to have both. And I can see Greg Marzhew breaking tackles, and I think he was a little bit cheaper even, wasn't he? I think he's 40k cheaper or something. So I went Marzhew. But if someone likes Roger and can see him breaking tackles, then he could be a boom buy. Like, he's a great player. I just don't know what to make of this Warriors side either. I haven't watched their trials, so it'd be really interesting to see how they go without SJ, without Tohu, without Fanua Blake. So Yeah. But look, he's a great player. You can't criticise someone for picking him, but I don't have him.
Yeah, and you mentioned boom by there, and that's like I'm just visioning. Like the Warriors look pretty good in their trials. To be fair, Roger scored a few tries against the Storm. Granted, he ran through like sewer far longer. I think once or twice there. Not going to have that every week at NRL level, but I'm keen on him. That being said, there are lots of changing faces in that club. So how are they going to go? Is he going to get those attacking opportunities? But the way I see it, just at the worst case, if he's getting a few extra runs and busting tackles, the base and power is going to be excellent. So he's in my team for now. He did average 72 points in his 3 games on the wing last season.
The only other thing is they are very skinny in the outside backs at the moment. So he could find himself at centre any moment, right? Because they're just... I know they were already skinny and then Dallin went down, so they're... Yeah, who knows what they're going to do there.
I was hoping you weren't going to mention that, mate, because I was quite hyped at him. Yeah. No, Rocco Berry is one there. I know he's dealing with an injury of his own at the moment.
I think he's out a while, isn't he?
Yeah, so I'm like, maybe there's a centre spot there, but I can see that he's potentially one injury away from going back to centre, which does concern me, but as I said, Dallin out of action as well. Mate, Luke Metcalf named in the 7 jersey. Chanel Harris Tavita, one of the biggest ones from the team list, named at 5'8". Tamari Martin missed the 17. I thought it was probably going to go the way of Tamari Martin. That being said, the trial team list, they had a few hints towards this one, so it shouldn't come as a major shock. But Harris Tavita, 330k at 5'8" in Supercoach as well. Should surely be dual position. He can cover a lot of positions, that man. Last season, he had 7 games of 80 minutes. He averaged 56.71. Awesome average. That included a score of 8 in 88 minutes. Do you know who that was against?
Well, it was overtime against us.
Doggies. Yeah. Take out that 80-minute game and that average goes to about 64. Granted, you're sort of looking for numbers that you want. There's a world where he's a terrific buy and fills in that sort of cheapie 5'8" slot for us in Supercoach, potentially for a lot of people there with Luke Metcalf. I just think with Tanner Boyd lurking, Tamari Martin lurking, I can't trust the job security, but he is cheap. He's a good footballer. What are your thoughts?
I assume he's lost the goal kicking, which is probably a good thing for him, because the way he was kicking the poor bugger, he probably is negative points in Supercoach. But I think I've got Luke Metcalf a long way in front of him. So if they're both at 5'8", I'd spend the extra money and get Metcalf. But not if you can't afford that, then I'd move something else around your team to get Metcalf.
I'm with you. Yeah. I'm with you. I think Luke Metcalf, and I've said it for a while, is the value buy at 5'8" to start the season. Goal kicking upside on a reduced price based on limited games last season. So I think Metcalf is the man. And just last year at the Warriors, one of the shocks, not shock, but probably disappointment from a Supercoach perspective, was no Jacob Laban. And honestly, by the time this podcast goes live, we're straight into it after the team list has been named and the article's gone out on the website. But I was sort of thinking Jacob Laban might have been named to start on the edge. He's nowhere in the squad. There must be an injury niggle of some sort that has happened there. I will catch up with it. We'll find out what the go is. But that has had a flow-on effect because I was hoping at having 2 of him, Leka Halasima and Dimitri Vormega. Halasima and Vormega are at 232k. Laban also dirt cheap. Now I'm sitting there going, all right, if Laban has a niggle and he's not good for this week and they want to give him 2 weeks until their round 2 clash... He comes back in there. Halasima or Vormega drop out. They've also named a 4-forward bench as well, with Aaron Clark at 13, Dylan Walker at 14. Minutes worry me. I'm very nervous all of a sudden about these cheapie forwards at the Warriors.
Yeah, I've got Vormega, but I don't... I'll have to chat to you afterwards which one of those two I should get. I've got Mitch Barnett in my side as well, so I've got another Warrior there actually. So, but I don't think he's going to be impacted by either of those guys. I just look and think, I had him last year. I loved him. He was really good to me last year. I think he's a really consistent, undervalued Supercoach player. He's just not one of those guys that a lot of people seem to buy for some reason. But I loved him, so I'm going to stick with him. And I think with AFB leaving, I can't see his role going backwards.
He becomes the enforcer, doesn't he?
I love Barnett as a player. So I've got Barnett as a bit of a, I guess he's probably about 10% owned or something. So, I think that's a pod. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. Mate, you've a bit of a development. You've learnt to call it a pod instead of a POD. You've evolved in your time off the podcast.
Everyone can learn.
You've been listening.
Yeah.
Hey, mate, moving on to the Panthers and the Sharks. At the Panthers, Dylan Edwards at fullback, McLean of the Casey variety on one wing with Paul Alamotti, Isaac Tungo and Luke Garner in the centres. I'll get to that shortly. Jack Cole and Nathan Cleary in the halves. Moses Leota and Lindsay Smith in the front row. Mitch Kenny at 9. Scott Sorensen and Liam Martin in the back row with Isaiah Yeo. Dane Laurie, Isaiah Papali'i, Matt Eisenhuth and Luron Patea make up the bench. Adds, it could be the Supercoach bias in me, but I don't see why Luke Garner's there. Paul Alamotti, who was terrific in the finals for the Panthers last season, moves to the wing. The Supercoach bias being Jesse McLean, who's named in the 20 jersey. I was thinking it'd be the two McLean brothers on the wings. We know Brian To'o's out with a hamstring niggle, expected back round 2 or 3. I'm not convinced it'll stay like this for game day. However, Ivan Cleary doesn't play Ducks and Drakes too often. He's normally pretty straightforward with his team listing. If it stays like this, like Jesse McLean was someone who I thought was at least, one injury away from injury at near bottom dollar, 234k, who could come into on the wing for the best team in the competition. Yep. I was just going to start him. He could be 2 injuries away from a start now. So what are your thoughts?
I've got the same problem. I had him in my 25 thinking that he would be potentially playing this week and then 1 injury away, but the 2 injury away does worry me. So I think I'll have to free him up and just hope that someone else gets picked next week that we don't expect, it always happens. Someone will get picked that we don't expect. But I've got him and the Raiders. Is it Tamale, the other?
Yeah.
So at the moment I've got 2 cheapies who are both either no job security or not even picked. So I'm going to have a look at that between now and the end of the week. But
well, mate, my concern with Tamale...
It's a surprise. Surprised by Garner.
My concern with Tamale was that, just watching the trials, Ethan Strange at 5'8", he's a really strong ball-running half. The ball doesn't get out to the winger quality or too often. So that concerns me. KO Weeks, a decent ball-playing fullback, but still learning the ropes. I just think he's going to be starved of opportunity, even with that job security. So if Tamale started round 1 and McLean was like 1 injury away, if To'o was there, I nearly would have just picked McLean anyway. And now it's completely different, so I'm sort of thinking maybe Tamale comes back in. But as I said, teams have just dropped, so we'll confirm that in the WhatsApp group and the podcast later in the week. Mate, also there, Isaiah Papali'i, one that I had in my team all pre-season. The further the pre-season went on, you saw the trials. He played in that weaker Penrith side in the first trial. You just went, something doesn't add up here, named on the bench. So a line through Isaiah.
I saw you pick that.
Yes, Isaiah Papali'i. So line through him. One that sort of crept up a little bit was... Not crept up, but Scott Sorensen, who's priced at $485k. I love him as a footballer. I think he's terrific. Averaged 50 points from 64 minutes per game in 2024. The season before he averaged, I think, was like 66. If he landed an 80-minute role there, I genuinely think he's underpriced. However, the fact that Papali'i did spend time on an edge in the trial suggests maybe he spells him. Does Sorensen go into the middle after that? I don't know. Maybe he's around 3 buy, but probably enough risk there around minutes not to start with him.
Ivan Cleary seems to love him though, because he does. He keeps picking him, and he stayed solid through that team. So he's obviously does the job that he's looking for. So
exactly. Yeah. So he's on my radar.
Talangi,
yes.
I know it was speculated earlier this week that Jack Cole was going to get picked, but that was a pretty big, high-profile purchase to have him sitting in jumper number 23.
Well, mate, you look at some of these great footy heads in Gus Gould spearheading your club, Cam Serrato, and you mentioned that they're building the Dogs and everything they did last year off defensive units and. We saw the defensive issues with Blaze Talangi last year, and terrific attacker, but I don't think he's probably hit the defensive standards of the Penrith Panthers, and he'll figure at some point this year, and he has a huge future, but they've just sat there and gone, no, like, we can't afford to be leaking anything when we have the best defence in the NRL, so I think it's just that. Yep. So Jack Cole gets the nod there. And, mate, the final team, the Cronulla Sharks, one of the most boring team lists in history because it was just the 1 to 17 you expected, almost to a T. Sam Stone Street comes in for Sione Katoa, who is out long-term with an injury. So Stone Street, smoky little pod there. Probably the only one to mention. I should read the team out. Kennedy at fullback, Stone Street and Mulitalo on the wings, Ramian and Kale Iro at centres, Braden Trindle and Nico Hines in the halves. At prop, Adam Fanua-Blake and Oregon Kaufusi, Blake Bailey at 9, the edges of Britton Nickera and Teague Wilton with Cam McInnes joining him in the back row, bench of Dan Atkinson, Sifa Talakai, Braden Hamlin-Uele and Tommy Hazelton. The one point I think we need to make is that Daniel Atkinson has been named as a bench utility, a smaller body, plays through the spine, can play on the wing, anywhere. Very versatile footballer. I think it's just a good sign for all the minutes of the forwards ads, but namely Adam Fanua-Blake, who there was a bit of chat earlier, I think it was from him himself or one of the other players, that maybe plays a few reduced minutes, but Craig Fitzgibbon, who often opts for a 4-forward bench, he's gone with Atkinson this season for round one. Fanua-Blake averaged 60 minutes last season. With the utility back on the bench, I think he plays near enough that, if not even potentially a few more. So I think any fears around Fanua-Blake's game time, pretty well allayed.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's a stable side, this, isn't it? Like the Sharks over the last 4 or 5 years, it's almost just the core of that side has stayed consistent. So you feel like you know what you're going to get from the Sharks. I think Fanua-Blake in there, again, I think it'll be good for his scoring. So, yeah, I think he's a good option. I haven't got him, but I've been a big fan over the years from a Supercoach point of view.
Yeah, nor do I, but I can't wait for him to burn me again this season after doing it 2 seasons in a row. Funnily enough, the year I finished runner-up, he was one of my pods in the back end of the season. I'm like, this bloke's a freak. Like, how could you not have him? And he busted his hands with one of my final 2 trades. I'm just like, you know what? He burns me every season. This year will be no different. He's a gun. Moving on, adds to the trial takes from the weekend, and we're just going to touch on a few key talking points from Supercoach in this one. Check out Walson Carlos' weekly wrap that goes live on Sunday night. Gun Supercoach mind, Wals. So check that out. Always a great listen, mate. Isaiah Iongi, 232k, and Tom Duffy, 198k. Iongi, fullback at the Eels. Duffy, halfback at the Cowboys. Cowboys very impressive in this trial. Most impressive from a Supercoach perspective, Duffy looked good, and he goal-kicked over Scott Drinkwater. The question begs, mate, do you run with Cleary and Hines, which is what I've had all pre-season, and then do you go with one of the cheapies? Do you go with both the cheapies? A few stats around potential price projections. So Iongi, if he averages 40 points, he'll make about 125k by round 6. Solid, but not great. Pardon me. A 50-point average would make him about 210k by round 6, which I think is well within his capabilities once he gets that Melbourne game in round 1 out of the way. Tom Duffy, a 40-point average, he's a little bit cheaper, would make him 150k by round 6, thereabouts, and a 50-point average, about 210k by round 6. So what are you doing, mate, at the moment? Are you starting both these guys, one of them, none of them? How are you playing it?
I've got them both. I think, again, it's a personal preference, but I just like the look of my side more when I don't have Cleary and Hines. Because I look at Duffy and I think goal kicking for the Cowboys, it just feels like that 50-point average feels well within reach. Gets a couple of attacking stats in that time, he'll average 50, and you're going to have to make that money, and then it just frees up what, 500, 600,000 to spend on other positions. Suddenly you're upgrading 2 other mid-rangers to keepers in good position. So I like the look of my side more when I've got both those guys in there, frankly. Iongi, the flex thing means I want 3 fullbacks because we've been wanting 3 fullbacks for so long. But again, Iongi at that price, I just think we've got to take the price rises and then hopefully pick up a good value fullback. It could be anyone. It could be Latrell coming back. It could be, maybe someone's price has dropped a bit. You just don't know. But yeah, I've got them both, and I think at those prices they're pretty hard to turn down.
They are, and Iongi's been locked in for me basically all pre-season, and he's only helped himself with his performances in the pre-season trials. Duffy is the one who's come onto the radar that's made it a lot tougher decision because I was so set on Cleary and Hines. I'm with you. I just think Duffy, starting halfback in a good attacking side with goal-kicking duties, and I know it's only an if, but if he comes down and goes 50-50 or even 60-60 in the first 2 rounds, I think if he goes 50-50 and then Cleary and Hines, they start okay, they might average 75-80, they might have a positive break even in triple figures. Iongi Duffy, or Duffy in this example, he could have a break even of about -50 in a Cowboys side that starts well and is kicking goals and looking great. They're going to have to move him anyway. Yeah. I don't think that's the end of the world because you can do it and free up a ton of cash to spend elsewhere and fix up any holes in your team. I just think it's too hard to pass up. So at the moment, I'm leaning towards Duffy and one of the 2 halves. I'm generally thinking about going with the Nicho Hines and dropping Cleary. I don't feel good about it, But I just think I see Hines as the one that's undervalued. I think he has a softer start to the season once he gets through this brutal Vegas game against Penrith away to start the year. Cleary had an off-season shoulder touch-up, I think it was, so he was in a bit of doubt for round one. So it's a big decision to make, but I'm leaning towards, going one of those two, possibly Nicho Hines, and going alongside Duffy in the halves.
Can I ask, just on Cleary, you say he's got a tougher draw. So, no disrespect to the Roosters, but the Roosters haven't been too strong in the
ordinary trials,
and they've got some injury concerns early season. So they start with the Sharks, then Roosters, which you probably looked at normally go tough draw.
Yeah.
But at the moment, with all those injuries, it's not too bad. Then Melbourne's tough. South Sydney, depleted.
That has changed
Cowboys,
hasn't it, in recent days.
So your first seven, suddenly the Roosters twice and South, you just don't know where they're at defensively. Anyway, so I don't know. I don't want to be in round 4, Penrith against South, not having...
And that's the thing.
Cleary.
If I didn't, there'd be a plan to get him in bloody quick because you don't want to go too far without him. So, mate, it's a big decision that needs to be made, but it's going to be a tough back end of the week in Vegas trying to make it. Cameron Munster was one that I wasn't overly keen on throughout the preseason just because I had worries about how he's returning from injury, off-season, some hip work done, nothing too major, but I just wanted to see him in a position at 5'8" where we're looking for value and not really finding much. Returned on the weekend, looked pretty good, moved well enough. I'm starting to think that maybe there's a little combo of Metcalf and Munster there because if he is, all well and good, and they wouldn't have played him if they were concerned about any injury, I do think he's undervalued. What are your thoughts?
Look, yeah, I had him in my side for a while there, and I can see what you're talking about. I've never been a big Munster owner. Like it's just, sometimes you have those players that you always seem to own, and some guys you never seem to own. I've never really been a big owner. I've actually gone Lockie Galvin at the moment, which is more of a pun. I just looked at the second half of his year last year versus the first half. I think he averaged like 6-point difference, and I just think the kid's a superstar. I think he's on the way up. At the moment, and I just thought as a pod, rather than just do something a bit different. Otherwise, we'll all have the same side. We've got to do something different. I think we sometimes all copy each other a little bit too much. So I just thought, you know what? I like the look of Lockie Galvin, so I'm going there at the moment.
Hard to knock it in a spot that is pretty wide open, so why not? Munster on my radar. I'm just trying to work it out. There'll be Luke Metcalf there partnered with someone. I currently have Dylan Brown with him, but decisions to be made.
You have Dylan Brown with Munster?
No, Dylan Brown with Luke Metcalf.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
Metcalf, yeah.
Sione Finau, 279k, 4 tries on a very dominant left edge at the St George Illawarra Dragons. A bit more on him later in the Cheapie analysis. The Knights, their assets fired. Greg Marzhew at 513k. Adds all I wanted to see from the trials, and I was probably going to pick him anyway, was just see the left edge get some more ball.
Yeah.
They were scoring tries for fun down there. Locked into my team. What are your thoughts?
Well, first, I didn't see that game. Because I was in San Francisco, I saw the highlights and couldn't believe it. I just think Greg Marzhew is one of those guys, if you don't have him, you fear what he might do against you. He's just got such a high ceiling there. So, I've got him in my side at 513k. I just think he's almost a must at that price, but he's just got such a high ceiling. Like I say, if he scores a try, but then he tackle busts for fun. Ponga, while Ponga's starting, I think Marzhew's good value at 513. I can see him going up to mid-700s.
Yeah, I think he's an absolute steal, Greg Marzhew. I've sort of said all pre-season, I think worst case scenario, he holds his value.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, cool, he averages 50, whatever, he hasn't hurt me. But the upside in it, if he scores more tries, which I think he almost certainly will, is massive. Power and base last year of 43 points per game. Hardly touched the ball in attack. So I think at 513k, lock and load Greg Marzhew. And the last one, mate, before that, you mentioned the Roosters and how ordinary they were in the trials. I don't think you've gone sort of too heavily on them at all, and maybe that's just this Doggies versus Roosters rivalry and you don't want to touch them, although I know you take your heart out of Supercoach like the rest of us. They were awful in the trials, and you sort of sit there and question their assets in Supercoach. Has their preseason trials impacted sort of any of their positions in your team? Like, I know I'm a Connor Watson owner. I'm sitting there going now, do I do this? Do I not overinvest in the cheapies in the back line? It makes it a lot of question marks.
Yeah, look, like I said, I didn't actually see the trial, so I don't know. I was just surprised by the score. And the week before, they had a lot of players out, so those trials, and the trials are trials. So, mate, the Roosters are a great club. I know they've got they're stacked for young talent. They've got a lot of young talent come through. So I know there's a bit of a transition there, and some fans won't know the names of some of the kids come through. But there's a lot of very good young players coming through, including one that I've got in my side in the centres. But it hasn't changed. Put it this way, I haven't dropped any players out of my side because I thought all that trials put me off. It's one trial, and there's still a lot of class there. And obviously they've got a couple of injuries without Sam Walker there at the moment. So, but I expect they will hit back.
I mean, mate, the Brisbane Broncos won the pre-season challenge last year as well. They've gone back-to-back, and we know how that ended up for them in the actual NRL. So, You're right. Don't read into them too much, but they are a guide. Lucky last that caught my eye, Adam Dewey at 431k. Don't know if you saw this trial or not, mate, but played in the halves. We assume we'll play probably centre round one, assuming Jerome Luai is good to go and cleared, which we really hope he is and should be. Had a couple of try hits there, 5 from 5 conversions. Moving to centre, there's a bit less, confidence in his scoring, but he's a player who's been a great Supercoach scorer in the past. I think he'll get through plenty of work, goal kick. Any interest there?
No.
Flat stick?
No, the reason I'd say no is just because that's all fair, but I worry that Luai comes back in and there's all those attacking stats now. They're up to, like, you got Luai and Galvin. I know he goes to the centres, but I just feel like he was playing in a different position. He's going to have different halves there. And I don't know, like they did come last for the last 3 years in a row, and I've got some good players in there. I don't know if I want to go too heavy, so I've gone with Galvin. I don't want to go Galvin and Dewey. I can understand if people go Luai instead of Galvin, but I would watch him a couple of weeks, and if he's if after 2 weeks he looks good, maybe. And if the Tigers look good. But
I think it's a fair shout in terms of like a bit of promise for the Tigers this season. Had some decent moments in trials, but proceed with caution in over-investing in them, because if you do and there is no improvement, especially with a few new combinations, it can backfire very quickly.
It's a slightly awkward price, like mid-400s. It's not keeper, but it's not cheapie either. So you could end up being stuck with a mid-400s player, which is not ideal. Yeah,
on my radar, Adam Dewey, but one that I think I'll watch in the opening few rounds. And if he looks the goods, and more importantly, the Tigers are looking the goods, then maybe one for round 3 before those price rises. Mate, you be up and about for this one. We've had a rate cut. This means there's plenty of value moving around in the rate market, so it might be time to reach out to Paddy and his team at Mortgage Choice SCW to see how much money they can save you. Alternatively, if you're sitting there right now thinking about getting into the housing market down the track, but you've got no idea what that entails, take the step and make it a reality by flicking the team a message on Instagram at mortgagechoice_SCW, or give them a buzz on 0295211611. Now, adds cheapie analysis. I'm going to go through the backs and the forwards separately. We won't fly through these. We'll have a good chat about them. But the articles are up on the website. I have re-ranked them, republished them today, so go and check them out there. A few of them will be pretty simple, buy lock-ins. A few of them we'll have spoken about already, and then there'll be a few that, of course, are team list pendant next week, particularly a few backline players. But starting in the backline, Sandon Smith at number 1 at 237k. We chatted about him earlier. A goal-kicking half. Yes, the Roosters didn't look great. The halves didn't look great, but when you can get a goal-kicking half who's a good ball runner, dual position, I find him too hard to pass up. He's in my team.
I think if you don't pick him, you must be playing your first season as Supercoach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's very simple.
Even
goal kicking half in a side that's got good attacking players, if they can pull it together, and he's 237k and dual position.
Even if it backfire, it won't backfire. But even if he comes out and averages 30 and doesn't make much money, I just think, getting rid of that risk of if he does go well and does average 40 or 50, I just don't think it's worth taking that gamble on. So,
and to be honest, he's also priced a level. You're not making a big mistake. Like, it's 237k. He's not going to go backwards in value much. So, it's an easy one.
Yeah. Isaiah Papali'i, we've spoken a fair bit about him. He's in your side, he's in my side.
Yep.
Terrific in the trials, so we'll lock him in. Tom Duffy, we've also spoken a fair bit about him. I will add to it, though, 22 games in Queensland Cup last season. He scored 5 tries. He set up 33, which is a phenomenal number for any league. Queensland Cup, still a strong standard of footy. So that come in at bottom dollar, goal kicking, lock and load Tom Duffy as well. If you're willing to part ways with one of your gun halves, which is, of course, the big question. Jackson Purdue at 257k. He was really impressive for the Cowboys on the weekend. 3 80-minute games last season. He averaged 56.3. 2 tries and assist in that time. There was also a sin bin in that time as well. I have Purdue, looks locked into a centre role. Great footballer in.
Yep.
Got him.
Great footballer, yep.
Robert Toya, I know he's one that you're pretty high on, mate. In a pretty ordinary Roosters side, you had plenty sent at him, handled a lot of challenges, but you didn't see the trial on the weekend. But 20-year-old, 6 games in New South Wales Cup last season at centre. He had 4 tries, 1 assist and 3 line breaks. He had 42 tackle breaks at 7 per game, 6 offloads. He just looks like a player that'll score well Supercoach-wise, and provided he's there round 1 next week, he's in my team. There is some job security concern if Mark Nwanganita-Wazi is at centre with Robert Toya. Billy Smith is due back around 2 or 3. Could come in for him, but at the end of the day, the worst case is an injury away from getting back in there, right?
Yeah, he's I mean, this poor kid's had a horrid run with injuries, so I think everyone hopes that he can stay on the field this year because he's a very good young player. I think he's a buy. I've got him in there and looking forward to seeing him play because I know him and his brother are both very good players. So, yeah, great player.
Sione Finau at 279k, 4 tries in the Charity Shield for the Dragons. Looked the goods, playing outside Val Holmes, put him on a platter for him. Importantly, though, was where he landed, and that was on what was a very, for both trials, dominant left edge of the Dragons. Christian Tuipulotu's lurking somewhere, I don't know where, but he'll obviously be in contention for that spot as well. But off the back of a terrific trial, if he's named round 1 at 279k, it's slightly awkward price. We don't know what we're going to get from the Dragons, but they did look good in trials. Interested in him, or how do you feel?
I don't have him at the moment. Again, but I've got those couple of cheaper guys at 230 like McLean, so I might have to do something to move my team around. But I was kind of operating on the basis that he wouldn't be picked, but I could be wrong there. They've got a very tough first-round opponent, obviously. So I'll be death riding him in that round too. So if he did play, but I don't have him at the moment. But the challenge for everyone, I guess, is if you knew he was going to be picked next week, then I probably would change my side around. But we don't, and the guys that we're tossing up are both picked this week in McLean and Tamale. So yeah, you'd almost be saying, well, I'm going to dump one of those and just hope someone comes up, whether it's him or someone else. But
mate,
it's the nature of this split first round, isn't it? It makes it challenging.
I'll start with Cleary and Duffy, and I'll drop Nicho Hynes. I'll be in Vegas to watch Nicho Hynes score 150 against the Panthers. Then Jake Clifford will get picked over Duffy in round 1 for the Cowboys, and I'll probably just delete my team and come back in 12 months' time, to be honest with you. I'm keen on Sione Finau, provided he lands that spot. I just love what the left edge did there. Kyle Flanagan was great. Bit stronger side for Clint Gutherson as well with his ball playing. So I think there'll be tries. Jesse Arthur's one that's in your team at the moment. I can see adds 341k. The Broncos look terrific in the preseason. Numbers aren't great. He averaged 35 per game last season with 21 in base. Season prior, in a side that went to the grand final, averaged 37 with 18 in base. I think he's a bloke that you can maybe pick at 340k if you want him. You play on matchup. You don't have to play him in many games. I think with Reece Walsh feeding him, good ball there, Hunt there, Reynolds there, try-scoring opportunities will come. And when he goes on a run of try-scoring, it might be 1 a game, there might be a few doubles. Yeah. There should be some cash. Don't love him, but I don't mind the Arthur's play.
See, that worries me now because I feel like I've picked him through hearing you talk about him so much over the years.
I love Jesse Arthurs.
You did. And I remember last year watching him in a game after you picked him, and I was like, damn, why didn't I pick him? Because he looked really good that game. Obviously, he didn't end up averaging that well by the looks of it. But again, at the price, I was just looking for some cheaper players, and he just stood out to me from watching those games from last year. But you've put me off a little bit now, I must say.
I'm on the brink.
But the Broncos this year are going to be different to last year as well.
That's the idea.
They look slick in the first 2 trials. And again, only trials, but they look slick. Reece Walsh in there. There's points to be had at the end of that back line. I'm going to stick solid.
I like it, mate. Yeah. Good confidence there. We went full circle. We got that.
I can't afford to move my team around.
Mate, and just touching on a couple of others there, and you can have a chat if you're keen on any of them. But Stafford Toa with injuries to Justin Olam and Brent Naden. Yeah. Toa every chance to start at centre for the Tigers at 288k. Averaged 49 points back in 2023 and 41 in 2022. Isaiah Tass at the Bunnies, 327k. One that I was a little keen on earlier in the preseason, with all the Bunnies injuries though, and Latrell in particular, I don't think I can go there. We've spoken about Tamale, Billy Smith. If he does get named in round 1, he'll be in my team. Could be back by round 2 or 3. In 2023, he played 14 games, averaged 54 points with 33 in base. Gun, he'll be in my team at some point. It's just a matter of when. Lewis Dodd, suspended round 1. Don't know if he'll be there in round 2.
How did Lewis Dodd make your list?
Well, he was in there before he got suspended, so I've just put him to the bottom. I mean, he was already pretty well on the bottom anyway, but yeah. Mate, any of those that you wanted to touch on, or you're all good?
The only one was Stafford Toa. He's the one when I look at that, you know, if I did need to change like a Jesse McLean, I could downgrade Arthurs to Stafford Toa. Again, I just don't love the idea of having a couple of Tigers in the back line there, but not to be disrespectful of the Tigers, but it's a risk. That's the reality. Until you see a team turn it around like that, it's a risk to start stacking a team like that.
I don't trust any Tigers backline players, to be honest, outside of Lockie Galvin, who did what he did as an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
And then Jerome Luai, we just don't know what he's going to produce either. So attacking players, they all make me nervous there. And there's a few of them.
I think Luai will be good. He's a great buy for him.
He could very quickly be the buy at 5'8". We just, unfortunately, didn't play trial, so we didn't get to see their dynamic. And anyway, mate, moving on to the forwards, we've spoken about Sandon Smith. How good's my list going? Obviously, I haven't updated this since teams dropped this over. Jacob Laban at number 2. Good one, idiot. However, it doesn't make sense with it. He's nowhere in the squad, so there must be a niggle why he's not in here, but we'll update them. We'll drop him down. Brendan Hands adds, deja vu. We've been here, we've done this, but seriously, people are looking at going cheapie hookers in Sandon Smith and, you know, whether it's Brendan Hands or Mamazelos or whoever it might be. 6 80-minute games last season, he averaged 52.2 points. Priced on a 36-point average from 55 minutes. If he's the sole hooker for the Eels in round 1, I think there's a serious case for him. What do you think?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I guess there are good options at hooker, though, aren't there? Like, there's actually a couple of good options there. Obviously, Sandon Smith being one if you pick him there. And then, so do I want Sandon Smith and Brendan Hands? I don't think so. He burnt me last year, or so.
He burnt everyone.
Yeah. So, and we don't know what Jason Riles and frankly Parramatta are going to look like this year. So I think there's a few question marks. Yeah, obviously, if he did play 80 minutes, then you could probably make money from him, but you can't pick them all. And so I'm going with Sandon Smith at, you know, over 100k cheaper. So, But if someone wants to pick him as a pod, a Parramatta fan,
I don't mind him, but it does make me sick to my stomach even thinking about doing it again.
There's some Penrith players around the competition, isn't there?
It's incredible,
unbelievable.
Yeah, be Doggies players in a couple of years, mate. With these big bases that you're building.
Yeah, probably. Well, that's the reality. I mean, I've spoken to Gus about this a lot. That's the reality. When you invest in junior development, you can't keep them all. So we've already seen some players move on this year, but that's okay. And
if you can win 4 comps and see him move around the traps, you'll probably take it. I think pat him on the back and say, on your way, champ.
Yeah, they've done a phenomenal job.
Again, I had a few players on here. Dimitri Vormega, I'm a bit nervous around him now with Laban coming back. Royce Hunt at 249k is one that it feels wrong. I'm just...
Don't do it.
But I'm looking at this 4th front row forward slot. I would never play him. I'm not thinking much of him.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to spend much money on my 4th front row. The Puaso Pele's, sorry, ads, and you can add Tom Amone to the Puaso Pele's as well. It's just the vibe I'm getting with Royce Hunt. I think Royce Hunt will play more probably NRL than they did, and I think he'll probably be a staple of at least the bench. I just don't see how much point scoring he's got in him. I'm not sure that he'll get the minutes. Look, he's in my team right now, but I'm just like, I'm looking at your team. You're into me, mate. Miles Martin. You've got a dual nuff there at 198k. At least my bloke's playing.
It's like a cheat. It's like cheating to make the rest of my side look better than it is.
Let's talk about one though that's not actually quite like on my list at the moment. But you've got Emre Gula there at 331k at the Dragons. Talk to us about that.
Well, I just think he'll get more minutes than he had. To be honest, I think with these positions, we spend a lot of time talking about it. We were talking about this just a couple of minutes before the podcast. We all spend a lot of time talking, and then if everyone does the same thing, you kind of get no variation. And then we'll get to round 4 and we'll go, wow, there's all these other players that no one talked about that also went up 50k, 60k or whatever. Are they going to go up 300k? Probably not. Am I expecting Emre Gula's going to make me 250 grand? No. But am I thinking he's going to get more minutes at the Dragons than he was getting at the Raiders? Yes, I think he's going to play the same. But I just think he'll get more minutes because frankly, the Dragons need front row.
There's opportunity.
Yeah, there's opportunity. Whereas at the Raiders, they had so much front row depth. He's probably being underutilised. So I think we know what we get from him. It's just a minutes issue. And so I think he'll earn me a little bit of cash and I can move him on. So that's all.
Yeah.
Whereas a Royce Hunt, I don't know that his minutes. He's not a big minutes guy, right? It's not like he's gone to the Tigers.
Well,
and stripped off
I look at those two, and I think similar. Like I would nearly play Emre Gula over Hunt a bit more confidently and be like for an extra 10 points.
Yeah.
But I look at about an 80k price tag difference. I go, if I can free up 80k there, are either of them going to make much cash? Probably not. They probably average not much within each other, but. Probably looking at price points, but whoever we pick for that slot, be it third or fourth front row forward, granted those going Horsburgh, May, Tino, quite strong, but probably the fourth front row forward slot, I think you're just hoping they do a job, and if they can make 100k, you'll take that every day of the week.
Maybe I'll have to do that so I deal with my Miles Martin issue. So, yeah, that's probably fair.
Oh.
I did this on the flight from LA to
That's
Vegas,
all right, mate.
Yeah.
The Corey Pax, 232k, really impressive in the pre-season trials. I'm not sure if he'd like a 50-30 minute split with Billy Walters, maybe 60-20. People looking at him as a cheapie hooker option as well. Blake Moses injured and due back early in the season. When does he come in? How many minutes does he get? In 55 to 60 minutes, if it does pan out that way, I just don't know how well he's going to score. I think he will need attacking stats, which he may get, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. And when you got Sanders Smith again, I just, don't overthink it.
You can probably rinse and repeat that with Peter Mamazelos as well. Kobe Hetherington, he's one I had in my team initially in the pre-season. I took him out before trials. He looked pretty good in the trials, to be fair, Kobe Hetherington.
Comes from good stock.
Does come from good stock.
Jason.
Yes, I was going to say, was Kobe ever at the club?
No, I think it's close, but obviously Jason was, so.
Yeah. He'll start at front row, at lock for the Broncos. We're expecting PPM, points per minute of just 0.86 last year. Played some decent minutes last year as well. Last year he offloaded 3 times in 23 games and busted 22 tackles in that time. I just don't know that there's going to be much of an uptick in Kobe Hetherington. What are your thoughts?
I watched a game with... I was up in Suncorp, watched a game with his mum and dad. A long ago, and his mum said something like she always likes to bet on him for first try score or something.
Oh, dear.
I can't remember what it was. But I don't think he scores very often, so he just doesn't seem to have those attacking stats, does he?
He averaged 40 minutes per game last season for a 35-point average.
Yeah. Good player, I just don't know.
Great player.
A good player, I just don't know if he's a super coach.
No super coach upside.
Again, who knows what's going to happen with Madge there, what sort of style they play. But no, I to be honest, I didn't really consider him.
Yeah. I mean, it's
some of the other options available.
A starting lock in what should be an improved team. I see merit in it, but if he gets 60 minutes, which he may, but you also look at Carrigan and Haas, they're going to play big minutes through the middle. The back rows, they'll be near enough 80. Granted, Gajewski might get 60 and Peter Kuru comes on, but he'd need minimum 60 minutes to make any sort of decent coin, so I'm not convinced on that one. Chad, probably put Mamazelos in that sort of Corey Pax camp. Jack Gajewski at 232k. Oh, so many red flags, just looks like he'll start in the back row with Jordan Ricky. I don't know if Brendan Piakura will be on the bench, but at 232k, if he's an 80-minute back rower, fine, but I think there's every chance Piakura's on the bench and comes on for him. What do you reckon?
I think it would just be such a surprise if they picked him. Then you'd be thinking, well, are they going to keep picking him? I don't know. I'm surprised. I feel like it would be a big risk to pick him, but equally, if he starts those first 3 weeks, he's guaranteed to make cash.
Yeah.
So I don't have him, but again, you sound pretty confident he's going to get picked, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's looking that way, and if he gets picked round 1 and he plays 80 minutes and he scores well, by round 3 at that price, cool, I'll get him in, but I just see him being there for a long time in your team, not about rid of him.
Check messages from people who know people to see whether he's...
Yeah, see what you can find out for us, Ads. It doesn't make sense to me, but I'm not coaching the Broncos, and they did just win the pre-season challenge with him over Piakura. So, and now, just touch on a few other ones to end. Sua Wong at the Roosters and Nafahu White, a bit more expensive and a bit out of the cheapie range. I went sub 350k players, but I have no idea what the minutes rotation, forward rotation is going to look at the Roosters. I don't know who's going to start where and do what. Spencer Lenyu's now out for the first 2 games as well, so someone might get decent minutes there for a bit, then he comes back and eats into them. I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm feeling like I just want to watch there. Cohen Hess, 327k, dual 2RF front row forward. He's a watch early on for me. Charlie Guymer with the Eels. Team list Tuesday one. If he gets a decent spot there and there's a bench utility or a hooker, maybe. Owen Paddy, we've spoken about. Then I just had a bunch on my watch list. Bailey Hayward, Josh Schuster, who I don't think he'll be even in their team round 1. Bailey Hayward at 300k. I'm not going to get him, Ads, but good footballer.
Great footballer. Love Bailey, yeah.
Just, again, with Kurt Mann there, Jamin Salmon, you've got so many of these sort of smaller-bodied middle forwards. Obviously, Josh Curran, who's suspended round 1. Supercoach-wise, I don't think he's going to get enough minutes, but the club obviously hold him in pretty high regard, yeah?
Yeah, no, he's a really good kid. He's a great guy. He's very consistent. You know what you're going to get. He's very professional. So he's a fabulous football player. We love him. I agree with you. Like, I just think in terms of the role he's playing at the moment, he's probably about the right price. So I'm not sure he's a Supercoach buyer. I saw you had Tom Amone there.
Yeah, he's a long way down that list. He's got the pharmacilies about him.
Look, I think... Look, and this is not from knowing the side, right? But I'd say, like, if you look at the sides we've been selecting in first couple of trials, like we've got plenty of front rowers there, so I'm not sure he'll be in the 17, but we'll see.
Yeah. I don't think Supercoach relevant. Anyway, mate, moving on to any early captaincy plans. Looking through the numbers at the moment, 15% have a vice captaincy on Nathan Cleary, 14% have straight captained him in Vegas. Nico Hines, 3.4% have the vice captaincy on him. So I think if you're captaining anyone early, I mean, you could go Arden Fanua Blake if you want to play safe, but I think it's Cleary or Hines are probably the plays. How are you feeling?
Well, you know my views on this one. I think vice captain's pretty irrelevant at this point. Like, you're going to have, likely 8 guys on your bench. I just don't think you want to be... And to be honest, you're unlikely to have a non-starter to be able to go in and make captain anyway. So I think
the buy team's the option.
That's true.
Yeah,
actually, that's
Tino's
true.
a good one round one.
That's true. So I don't know. I just think there's too much chance of a low score there. So I don't see vice captain as an option. I mean, I've got Cleary vice captain in case he comes in and gets 300. But I think if you think he's your captain, you should captain him. But I just don't think that's the matchup. Don't think Penrith Cronulla doesn't scream to me to be a captaincy game. So at the moment, I've got on Ponga, which I think you do as well. But I don't think this week's the week.
At the moment, I've got the VC on Ponga and the C on Tommy Turbo.
Oh, I do. And that's the beauty now with the flex, isn't it? You can do that with these.
You can, mate. Yeah. You can go 2 fullbacks.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so very, very handy there. As it stands, I'm not overly interested in the Vegas teams. Smaller field. There were plenty of points, certainly in the first game last year. I think it was Manly and the Bunnies, but I think probably the smaller fields is more about just a faster game, adjudicating it that way, being a bit more free-flowing, which every chance they'll do it again as they try and sell the game to the States. But no captains for me from it. I think I'm just going to go the fullbacks next week and make use of that flex position and being able to go the couple of fullbacks. Mate, a few questions before we wrap it up. The first one from the great crew over at NRL Supercoach Addicts. Thoughts on Tallis Duncan at 420k? You see worth a pickup? Obviously, the devastating injury to Cam Murray long-term. Rabbitohs players falling like flies. Does Tallis Duncan sort of come into the mix? Like another middle forward there. Grant he's an out-and-out prop, but Junior Totola, nowhere to really be seen in the pre-season. Concerns around him. Tallis Duncan, 420k. I want to see him get the minutes before I invest, but good footballer, good work rate. I can see it. I just don't want to go too early.
Yeah, I thought he might come on a little bit more last year in terms of minutes, but who knows with minutes now with that side, and with injuries. So I agree. I wouldn't surprise. He's a good young player. but you'd want to see it for a couple of weeks.
Awkward
and then
price.
Jump in. Yeah, very awkward.
Yeah, like if he was sub 400, I'd nearly go it, but at 420, it's just like, yeah, a little bit tricky. One from Tragic Eel around your doggies. A thought on front row forward Sam Hughes. Is he worth a pickup or is minutes challenged? Will we see the highs that he had last year? He scored a few tries at different times. Sammy Hughes, enough uptick there? You're quite patient on Sam Hughes last year and not build him into too big a game time, but another one who's a good footballer.
Yeah, no, he's a good young front rower, Sam. I don't know that. Is he worth a pick? I mean, what's he priced at? I actually don't know what he's priced at.
Let me get him up
I haven't
for
got
you.
him in my side, but I don't think I've got any Bulldogs.
Sam Hughes is at 355k to start the season, so he was a 36-point average from 33 minutes per game. Expecting any major uptick in minutes from him? Like you're all pretty healthy and fit there.
Look, his minutes will probably go up a bit, but I'm guessing just it's his second real season. I guess he played a little bit the year before, but so his minutes might go up, but not dramatically. No, like we've got Max King can play big minutes. We've got quite a few good young front rowers. Yeah, so I don't think he's going to have a massive uptick in minutes. I'll put it this way: I wouldn't say buy him because he's going to get 60 minutes a game and you're going to make a big money. But if you like Sam, go for it. Mate, he's a good kid. I hope he's scoring a try a week and we're all buying him in week 3.
It'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? That one from Nashi. Is Alex Seyfarth a legit starting option at $435,000? Seyfarth's one who's lobbed in. Looks like he may be an 80-minute edge back row for the Tigers. It'll be Samuel Fainu on the other edge for them. You can make a bit of a case for him. And I've got some stats here. I'm just getting to them. But is Alex Seyfarth one that you consider?
Again, I just want to see the Tigers before I start loading into. Like again, they had 80-minute second rowers last year that didn't score that flash.
So I think they chopped and changed between a few of them. Samuel Fainu averaged about 50 and went okay, but it's
Bateman, like it's not like they were killing it. Do you know what I mean? Like and Papali'i, he went from a gun at Parramatta to pretty disappointing there. So yeah, look, there's so many changes in that side. It's like a new. Like a completely new club in some ways with so much turnover and now you got Luai there, but yeah, I would watch it at 435. I would be a watch.
Priced on a 44.
Although I've got Jack Bird, so
yeah,
I don't love that either.
Priced on a 44-point average from 48 minutes last season in 3 80-minute games in the back end of the season. He averaged 63 with 45 in base. I see it. Like, the numbers are good, but the sample size is so small. Job security there. I know there's not a lot of edge depth at the Tigers. I don't know if there's going to be a lot of uptick. I know Walsh Carlos in his podcast in the weekly wrap this week said that on the right edge, you've got 2 left edge dominant halves. So I think Galvin, what'd they say? Like, whoever ends up on the right edge, they'll be naturally just going back infield. So you probably want to be on the left edge as opposed to the right. But again, with no Luai in the trials, it's just hard to really judge a lot of these Tigers players. So
what do you make of Jack Bird, by the way?
I don't like it as a buy. He's very popular. I
feel dirty with it.
Yeah, I think for the record, he could be potentially one of the value buys of the season in actual NRL, which would probably lead to him being it in Supercoach as well. I think he's an excellent player. Just his body, mate. The poor bugger can't string games together. I don't know how many minutes he'll play. I think he's going to move to a middle role and play sort of at lock there. But even if named to start at lock, I'd wait and just be like, if he kills it the first 2 rounds, I'll get him round 3. But there's just too many red flags with Jack Bird, despite I think the world of him as a footballer. Just needs to get that body right. Mate, next question coming in from Teague. Thoughts on Kelma Tuolangi? Really disappointing in the trial on the weekend. He was good in the first one, scored a ripping try running off Ronald Volkman, 433k. He's been in my team all pre-season. I think I'm going to stick with him, but has a tendency to fade in and out of games a little bit and in and out of form. I notice he's not in your team. I think I'll hold him, but with a lot of edge back rolls at the Eels, I'm not confident about it. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I didn't see the trial, so I can't comment on that. But I don't know. So who are they saying is going to be the starting second row? Sean Lane?
Well, actually, it's a good one for you, mate.
Yeah.
We don't know, but Kidiani Katonga, your old boy, started on the edge in the trials. So he's obviously impressed there early on, and he's a devastating ball runner, whether or not he's got the week in, week out, obviously pretty early on in his career. So that's what I mean. I would imagine Kelmer's at least secured over Katonga unless he's really killed it, but that's where it's sitting at the moment.
And so Sean Lane's
injured, due back earlier on in the year, but I think Lane possibly moves to, like, he played a middle role in the back end of last season in that rotation. Bryce Cartwright seems a little bit out of favour.
Ryan Madison? Was he
Madison, he might go into that middle rotation as well. So that's when they've got options, but as it stands, that's the way they look to be going.
So to me, it's just too many. There's too many names and none of them sounding certain for me to want any of them, I think. I mean, and it could be that one of them gets picked and is value, but right now I wouldn't know which one to pick, so I'm steering clear. But yeah, it seems like there's a lot
going on.
Yeah.
There's a lot to dissect between now and the weekend, mate. And when you're in Vegas,
and a new coach, so you don't know what the coach what style of play he's going to have, who he wants to pick.
Anyway, storming round one down there just to make it worse. But anyway, look, ads, that'll wrap us up for the first SC Playbook episode, I should say, of the NRL season. As I said, Team List Tuesday dropped today. Heaps more to come later in this week. Beers and Break Evans, Guru and I are recording from studio in Vegas. We'll have the question and answer podcast, the Halfback podcast. It returns this week, the punting podcast. So plenty to come ahead of round one. Hope you enjoyed the show from the Bellagio. Thanks to Ads for coming in. Much appreciated, mate.
No worries, mate. Good to see you.
Cheers, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Cheers.